Hello, everybody. The darkness retreats, the void surrenders, and the realm is bathed in light. I awaken, resplendent and unyielding. Gather, my chosen, for the age of greatness begins anew. As promised, I have returned, and all faithful who are here get to bear witness my splendor. Today, we're going to be hanging out with Rec and discussing a world building project that we've been working on for the better part of a decade. It could be longer, it could be shorter. Time is a construct, and I'm above it all. At any rate, let's go ahead and jump over there, and let's get to it. Where's that call at? There we go.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, hello.
Oh, hey. Thank you, Maximus Prime, for that follow. I appreciate you. I see you. What was the question you asked, Charm?
I said, do you guys just really hate yourself tonight?
That's a trick question because you added the qualifying time window of tonight, and I just hate myself.
Why?
Just
Why is this an exercise of self-loathing?
Infinitive. It's not an exercise. Have you seen me?
I feel like there's a detail I might have missed.
No,
I'm doing hardcore on.
Oh yeah. God. Whoops. I'll wait for you to join me. There we go. Yeah, I've got to keep my hands and my eyes busy. I'm doing hardcore COD grinds in the background.
Okay.
That's the I hate myself bit. Yeah, Lena, you tell them. Go get them. Good job. I'm so proud of her. They grow up so fast.
So,
hey, look. It's Pixel Pillow of Twitch.tv.
That's
and
not true.
Of unread.
He died.
Also,
he died building
He was, however, building furniture.
I fucking knew it. Right. I fucking knew it. That's all that bitch does.
He streams and he builds furniture, dude. That's it. All right. So, how does one start this? This is like showing up at the awkward part of an orgy. Like everybody's just sitting around with their drinks, hoping it lubricates it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's exactly like that. So today we're going to be doing a Lorecast on a world building project that we've been working on for a while. We have a lovely guest here who's going to act as not quite a moderator, but
mediator.
Yeah, mediator. That's a much more appropriate term.
A key log. Yeah.
Yep. And she's going to be prompting questions, asking for clarification. Although, if anybody in the chat has any questions or has anything that they'd like to know more about, I definitely invite you to chirp up and voice your interest because that'd be super cool.
We just constantly got the Starship Troopers. Would you like to know more button popping up on the
just
bottom.
Always. Oh hey, should we do the?
It goes nowhere. We just want you to break your screen pressing it.
Should we do the join chatty bit so that any messages?
Yeah. Go ahead and knock on my heaven's door.
Aren't you supposed to knock on me? Otherwise, it breaks things.
No. I fix shit. Come
okay.
on. Trust me.
Okay.
Come on, Papi Chulo.
There we go.
There we go. I can accept it.
Cool.
And then you can do the shared chat bit. Everything is great.
Let's invite.
Everything is wonderful.
Let's start sharing chat. Perfect. Now, if anybody asks questions in your chat or vice versa, we'll both see them. There's a text.
And it has the added benefit of I get to steal all of your viewers.
Yep. All of them. I have so many. Perfect. It works.
I have at least 4.
4 viewers?
It might be 50 more than that, but yeah, I have at least 4.
I've got me. So if nobody else got me, I've got me.
I got your back, buddy.
Cool. Both of us. We're both here. We've got
yeah, we have a Terminator event.
Pixel coming in with the hot takes from 3 hours ago.
Yeah. Hey, he's a little bit slow, okay? It's like one of them what do you call them? Charity cases?
Yeah, something like that.
All right, so yeah. Charm keeps trying to say stuff, and then I derail the choo choo.
So I think a good place to start, especially for people like me who know nothing other than the music, is, and I know this will be a little hard because you guys have so much lore built up, but a basic summary. And is this a story? Is it lore? Is it a universe? Is it all three?
Kind of more of a setting, I think, would be a
It
better description for it. Z?
what the album?
No, 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 no,
No,
no, no, no.
all of
The
it.
the the canon itself is more of a setting and
Oh,
a history. Yeah,
yeah,
not
it is a
the
series of stories and lore in a fictional universe that it's a world building project. So it's a setting, it's a bunch of individual stories, it's events, cultures and art that are created to both service and represent the universe. So you'll find different expressions of it, like the short story that I had written um, is in the perspective of a person in this universe at a certain point in time, whereas these albums represent the 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 tales that people tell to each other in universe of their own history. So it's not always as cut and dry as this represents a one-to-one retelling of the factual events, but more of a this is this part of the story, this part of the lore, as seen through this particular perspective.
Okay. Then from there, e- explain the world. Like, so Rec
Explain it
kind
right
of,
now.
yeah, Rec kind
Okay,
of
so
started to
here's the earth.
explain what type of um fantasy genre it falls under, the magic and that kind of things, or lack
Be
thereof
like
of magic.
grim, dark, mana punk fantasy. Probably be the best buckets to slice it into.
Um yeah, yeah, it's a sort of mid-level fantasy, mid as in like magic, mid magic
Mid
level
magic.
fantasy.
Yeah.
Like it's not so hard so as to imply that we have solid rules on how everything works, but there are aspects of the magic that do have rules that we follow in order to explore them, where other aspects are left much more soft for both narrative interest and to give us room to expand in the future. But
Okay.
definitely fantasy. Mana punk is definitely an aspect of what we explore there. But you'll also find things like a lot of you'll find a lot of themes wrapped into here because we try to make the world culturally diverse. Um, and
Yeah.
that is seen as you explore the different like regions and the cultures that populate them.
And like not just culturally diverse, but also age it over time.
Mm-hmm.
That's a that's a thing that I personally have a lot of fun doing.
For sure. We try to because the lore itself spans over the course of uh,
How
many
many?
thousands of years. It spans over the course of a whole long ass time.
Yeah.
We try to make sure that when we're looking into the past and developing things for the past, we leave a through line that we can connect to the future for how things get from point A to point B. Or whenever we're projecting possibilities for the future, we want to make sure that we're laying down things that we can then explore or extrapolate to those other things into the future.
Okay.
Although we've definitely also done it the other way around, where we've put something in the future and then de-aged it to
Mm-hmm.
see what it would have looked like in the past.
It's true.
Um, to start going more into details, because I know you guys have a lot of lore, but this is all sounding very vague and is not
Oh yeah,
fully
yeah, 100%.
painting a picture. Give an example of that, where you guys have started something in the future and then de-aged it into something like to span the centuries of time.
Um, I've got a few examples in mind, Rec, unless you have something that you want to voice.
I mean, it'd be the avatars themselves would be the one thing that jumps off the page at me, because that's also kind of where the canon started for us.
Mm-hmm.
The avatars.
Um,
they're these heroic figures from the history of the world that played a very important part in the establishing of the known canon. Um, but as a result of the impact of their actions, they've become a lot more deific as time progressed. So where they were just really important people in the past, they've become pseudo deities in the future. Kind of like how, and just to use our American perspective here, we take the founding fathers and we have idealized versions of what they may have been like. This is kind of extrapolated times 1,000.
Okay. Okay.
Um, my own example would be I have a conlang or a constructed language that I'm using for one of the regions, Arcanus. And in the writing that I've created for it, I've also gone and tried to come up with etymological roots.
I
And
really appreciate that, Yogi. Thank you.
shout out to, oh, hey, nice. And roots for what the glyphs originated at. So I have a sort of map of how the symbols that represent the different letters in the alphabet changed over time in order to be able to give them some kind of context. Or if I ever wanted to do something written several thousand years ago, I have an idea of what those letters would look like or where the language would be in that place and time.
Okay. That's actually really cool. I love that you pulled um written language into it because that's something a lot of people miss. And is a really big part of what made a lot of the classic fantasy writers so big is their written language and that it's an actual usable written language.
Mm-hmm. I love it. It's gotten to the point where it's scaled enough that whenever I want a name for something, it's usually the first place that I look. My small glossary or dictionary of words that I already have existing and see if I can put together a name for something using the rules that I've already created. And if there's an absence that can be filled, then I fill it. And over the course of time, I now have nouns, verbs, some adjectives, and a general grammatical structure that I can use.
Yeah, it's very much a construction of what you need when you need it,
Hey,
as I understand
Nubis.
it.
Historical
Yeah,
characters
so
like
he said historic
Achilles
characters like yeah,
and
and
both great.
kind of
Yes.
except um taking kind of taken in a different direction as far as how we recall those individuals, because on our own trajectory for this like socioeconomic and intellectual evolution of like the societies of earth, we have increased our knowledge and progressed bit by bit. There have been setbacks, sure, but right now we're kind of at a high point for that. So we look back on those figures as like mythical in stature, yes, but still men, and try to identify the difference between the mythos and the man. Whereas in the Ark's legacy, that growth, that progression didn't happen that way. They rather than under like learning to understand these mythological figures as men, they deify them more and more to a point where like at least one of them is being given credit for most of creation because people don't understand the difference between a lot of things. So it kind of went in the other direction of real life. Did I misrepresent anything there, Z?
No. It's certainly much more pronounced in the areas in which they are celebrated. Um, for example, Arx Arcanus kind of holds. They're
I knew
kind
where
of
he was going with the Bofa, by the way.
yeah.
I was choosing to gloss over that and take an actual question out of it. Go fuck yourself.
So Arx Arcanus is kind of the religious hub of the world in that they kind of they're a lot like the Vatican in that sense.
Chaos is saying that the music is drowning me out on your stream, by the way.
Good, it's your own album. I told you.
Oh, you son of a bitch!
um,
Turn me down.
there, that should be much better. Where was I? Oh, so because Arx Arcanus is the religious hub for a large part of the world, their avatar or the person that they worship and venerate is a much more impactful figure of the three initial avatars, where the other two are still worshipped and venerated in their own right. The avatar Pyrian is much more pronounced in their religion and has a much more central figure there. But when you
he's
start,
almost messianic.
yeah, he's both Messiah and God in several ways, because where the rest of the rest of the Imperium sees the religion as something to be practiced a lot more casually, there's aspects of the religious canon that speak of him in ways that are a lot more divine. For example, um, in the religious canon, he literally sang magic into existence. That's not literally correct, but there's enough of what happened in history to be like, I can see how they've drawn that conclusion. And then in places like Artifices, where the avatar Raquius is a lot more prominent, they see him as sort of a master architect that brought the world together. Um, while the other two avatars take a little bit more of a back seat in the form of, like, they were important, they were instrumental, but all of this exists because of the groundwork and infrastructure that was created as a direct result of our avatar. So their importance doesn't necessarily wax and wane, but becomes a lot more potent depending on where in the world you're exploring them.
Yeah, it's cultural figureheads.
Yeah, that makes sense. So am I correct in saying that the first album is someone from the future telling the stories of those deity-like people?
So that was an exploration of what how the oral history might be um, passed down, uh, and I kind of like in talking with Z a bit, I kind of really liked the idea of power metal being how the oral history is passed.
It's pretty sick.
And so so that's kind of where that came from. And a lot of artistic liberty was taken describing the events in Genesis, um, as well as describing the cradle itself. Uh, and
The
that's intentional error and unreliable narrator from the point of view of um like the future oracle or the bard or whoever happens to be retelling that oral history.
Mm-hmm.
Pause. The cradle. What is that?
It is the world that gave birth to humanity in our canon, and it was um completely annihilated in a foreshadowing of the inevitable heat death of this universe in the form of the darkness or the dark.
Okay.
Also, Arafel. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the proper name, the clinical name.
the proper name.
Clinical name.
Well, because the main individuals in the lore who came up with words to describe these things, approached it all kind of from a scientific point of view. So there is clinical names for things that they defined, but then there is then the colloquial terms or the folklore terms or popularized descriptions and things like that, which are largely cultural.
Okay. Would it be correct in saying that those from the future in this second world that they go to,
Which
uh,
is called Atrium, by the way.
okay, Atrium would view the dark, because I don't remember the actual name that you just gave me, um, as more of a folklore, as in something that, like, how Christians
Ah,
view the
so
rapture or the
yes
second
and no.
coming.
First
Okay,
off, just a slight correction. It's Atrium, not Atrium.
Atrium.
My
Okay.
apologies.
Don't
I
worry, you're not the
just
first person to make that
was taking
mistake.
a drink.
Oh.
Didn't you?
Huh?
Wait,
No, many
who else
many
made that
people who have
mistake?
attempted to say atrium have accidentally said atrium. It just looks very
Okay,
similar.
okay. I remember that being a confusing thing when we were first making a server of that namesake a long time ago.
Mhm.
Um, what what was I in the middle saying? Oh yeah, yes. The question about um whether people view the dark as folklore or not.
Mhm.
Yes and no. So they it's so culturally impactful because that's a deep genetic scar for all of humanity, or what seeds what remains of humanity on Atrum, because the cradle as a world is completely lost in that event.
Okay.
So they lose their place and have to find forge a new one on completely alien lands. And so that has a cultural imprint that echoes throughout every age in kind of its own way. And eventually we'll get to a point where they know the dark is evil, but they misattribute to it what that means. There are like dark filled caverns and stuff, and like old mines and things of that sort uh, beneath the ground. And they just kind of start culturally referring to that as the dark because bad things happen in it. And they just understand that bad things happen because of the dark. They've lost what the dark actually was because it hasn't been a problem for so long. And so they start attributing that same horror to other things, kind of like we do the boogeyman.
Okay.
The dark is the boogeyman.
Right. Right. And that actually kind of makes sense because the Christian devil is actually what the boogeyman is based off of. Um but
I did
no
not know
one,
that.
yeah, see, no one really knows that. Uh that's why it's always like, oh, if you're bad, the boogeyman will come and get you. It's actually, if you're bad, the devil will come and take you to hell. Like that's what they're referring to, but it's been
You
so
see that,
lost
Z?
in our culture
Yep. Cool.
uh that it's just the
Oh
boogeyman.
no.
Um so that kind of makes sense with the dark becoming just anything bad or evil or
Yeah.
scary.
Anything you want to add to that, Z?
Um,
Or correct?
no,
I run off with things in stream of consciousness on a lot of stuff where Z is far more annotated with things. And so he acts as the de facto lore keeper just because he has a written history that we keep living, where
it's
I
true.
have everything stuck in the gray meat wrinkles, and I remember things in my favor more often than they were in my favor.
You also remember your version of the things that you thought of before we discuss them.
Oh yeah. I also just come up with things and then canonize it to myself without talking about it with him, and then I'll have it, in an album and be like, "Oh, you're cool with this, right?"
And then we gotta have real long conversations about how to make things work.
Yeah, we just like Autism vomit at each other in front of someone and at someone else's birthday. Oh my god.
I'd say that your description of how people view the dark is pretty accurate. By the time that people start looking at it as a cultural memory rather than a memory that they know themselves, then it definitely loses a lot of its bite. They understand that it's the reason why the cradle doesn't exist anymore. They understand that it's the reason why they're not there anymore, but they don't really understand what it means in relation to them or in relation to the world that they live in or how it can
Well, it's
or will affect
also
them.
depending on level of education. Um, there are those that don't actually know that the cradle existed because it's wrapped up in a creation mythos where Pyrion, the avatar of day, created everything and sang magic into existence. And Pyrion was from the cradle. So
Yep.
it's viewed as kind of a heaven or a paradise before. So there are those that don't actually realize the cradle was a different world,
Mm-hmm.
but they bear the genetic scar still of something lost. So it is a paradise, but it is a paradise lost. Milton's not going to sue me for that one, right?
No, it'll be fine. He's got enough.
He's got enough. That's got to be fair use. That's got to be.
He got a whole version of the church just for himself.
So is it like humans, like how did they get to this new world? Is it another
Oh,
planet that was uh
yes.
near
Yeah,
them?
it's another not near them.
Did they magically get there?
So
Did
okay,
they build and
I could go into this, but I'm gonna instead let Z take this one first, man. It's his baby, and then I'll flesh out anything around that.
Well, I mean, you did do a lot of the fleshing out in the album
Yeah, yeah.
itself. Yeah, he's
um
better. Okay, cool. Um, yeah. So to summarize, there's the world called that is known only as the Cradle. Whether or not it had its own name is entirely lost to history. But this is where humanity is from, and in this world, humanity has kind of I wouldn't describe it as an ecumenopolis where it's completely covered in city, but it is a utopia of technology and technological advancement. Whenever you think of like the meme, this is where we would be if I had not dropped my ice cream, and then it shows like flying cars and a big bright big bright background with people walking through huge parks and everything looks clean. That's the general vibe of the place.
okay.
And uh, at some point in its history, the dark arrives, and the dark is its own. It's effectively a cataclysm. It's a large entity of mass consumption and destruction. Um, and when it visits the cradle, it fighting against it becomes untenable. So what humanity does in the last days of its losing war against the dark is they put together every scrap of um, experimental science and magic that they've managed to accumulate up until this point, and they create a device that theoretically allows them to be able to teleport. It requires an astronomical amount of power. It is wildly unfeasible. It is unreliable and difficult to navigate, but it is theoretically possible. So, using this one final gambit, they manage to find a place far out in the universe that seems like it is hospitable to human life because geoforming isn't exactly an option when you're bearing down the mouth of this calamity that's a day or two away from destroying everything.
Right.
And they create this last ditch effort that consumes their sun, their world, everything as fuel to get this tiny little pocket of humanity um, moved over to this potential new place where they might be able to find some kind of survival. And so they they execute this plan. A council of very few people come together and make this decision for all of humanity. And this is where you see the avatars first come in, is they're part of this group of people who come together in secret and they're like, hey, so we have this. It kind of sacrifices everything else, but it gives us a chance to live where we're definitely all going to die in like 3 days or in 2 days or in one day, however long is left before the dark finishes consuming the solar system that they're in. Um, so they unilaterally decide that the city and everyone in there, they'll try to gather as many people as they can.
Salty.
Huh? Oh, hey, Salty.
I'm just saying, hey, Salty.
They'll try to gather everyone that they can and save what they are able to save. And so while the device is being prepared, people are being drawn in from everywhere. Information is being written down as best they can, and then finally, when they pull the trigger, it teleports that chunk of that world away to Atrum, and as a result, consumes everything around there. It consumes their sun. It consumes the rest of their world. But none of that really matters because that was about to be lost to this threat. So, yep, exactly, Chaos. Bend the veil, slip through space.
However, that song is in reference to a much later event, but using the same basic premise and the same basic technology.
Yeah, they extrapolate that the technology used to move the Ark, which is the city that had been moved from the cradle to Atrum, is later
called the Faithless Exodus.
Yes, in an event
I'm dropping that because it's fucking dope.
It is dope. That technology is later revisited for slip technology, which is a form of teleportation through moving through higher dimensional spaces. So in order to once they've managed to bridge that gap, there's an offset that causes the field in which the city lands to be partially underground. So the end result is the whole thing just kind of explodes outwards. And the city lies inside of a giant crater. And it is in this crater that humanity slowly tries to find a way to keep itself alive. And that's where the beginning of the album comes in, with humanity just doing its absolute best. So the album starts with the final days on the cradle. You travel through the Faithless Exodus, and then you see the beginning days of humanity as they try to establish themselves on Atrum in this completely alien and wild world where their technology no longer works because magic fundamentally works differently here than it did on the cradle. So they're starting at a technological disadvantage, with really the only thing going for them is I don't know, the indomitable human spirit. They got moxie, they got chutzpah.
Okay, I gotta pause you real quick.
Okay.
To expand something out. In regards to a correction with the and a fleshing out of like the politics of the cradle.
Yeah.
And the nature of how the avatars came to power initially. So the avatars, Pyrion, Rakwas, and Tivinia. Am I pronouncing Pyrion correctly?
Yeah.
Is it Pyrion or Pyrion?
It's either.
Cool. Yeah.
I think it's Pyrion.
Okay. They represented a not small um, faction of academia on the Cradle, and were elected kind of democratically as the masters of their schools of thought to handle the crisis for the Ark, which was large in part um, a kind of a large school of progressive academia. Like it was the bulk of the Cradle functioned to pursue higher knowledge and work their own kind of form of magic called Ark itself, which is what the city was named after.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So Pyrion, Tavinia, and Rockwis were initially elected to lead through that crisis. Um, and that was done. That election was done fully knowing the direction that they were going to take it, because the Arc Engine was a largely debated and loudly discussed topic. So it was kind of a decision everybody made,
Everyone on the Ark,
or at least,
or in Ark.
yeah, everybody who survives.
Yeah.
So culturally, they bear the weight of that decision, even though it was the avatars that turned the keys that lit the engine. Everybody voted for them. They all bear the weight of that choice to save themselves, but also to forge a legacy for humanity.
Okay.
Chaos has a question.
Based on location, is it deity based or is it tied to the planet?
So the question is for anybody listening without watching: what makes magic behave differently based on location? Is it deity based or is it tied to the planet? You want to answer that?
Um, so I have the answer that existed when they were in separate spheres. Now that and this is not something we need to go into any further than if you know what a sphere is in sci-fi or fantasy, that's what I'm talking about. But it no longer is applicable to our own canon, and so now I don't actually know how they're different, but I know their sources are different. I know what each of the different sources are, but I don't remember how we logicked out how they're able to be different within the confines of the same universe.
Um, so the I don't know if we've decided that every planet has this quality to it, or every celestial
Oh
body.
shit! No, that's right. I remember now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So the cradles. Um. Okay. So answer is it's based off the planet, because what is referred to as breath, or Atrum's breath on Atrum, which is ambient magic, radiates out from its core. It is a part of the um, chemical processes of the planet's core in this universe, and this has a number of interesting knock-on effects later on discuss that we can get into later, but are touched on in multiple tracks in the albums. Um, but on the cradle had an inert core, so it did not have this it did not do the same radiation of ambient breath or magic. Um, so what arc energy they were able to get came from their star.
Yep.
Anything you want to expand on or correct there?
No, that's pretty much it. Volume down on the music a smidge more. I don't think I can
God damn.
make it quieter.
Just switch to one of your lo-fi shit, lo-fi beats, dude. I was mostly giving you shit. I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was this big of an issue.
It is kind of as low as I can make it here.
That's wild. My shit's so low.
It
Like
it
it's over here
could
limboing.
benefit from tweaking, but
Nobody benefits from tweaking. Trust me, I've seen drugs take out people.
okay, cool.
That being said, you should smoke.
How's that, Chaos? Um, no, that's more or less it. There's a quality to our universe where celestial bodies radiate uh, a form of raw magic, and this is not something that was present on the cradle. So a lot of the technology was made to exploit the little amounts that they had in whatever ways that they could. Um, and when they moved to Atrum, because of the incredible saturation of this magic coming from the core of the planet, uh, ev- everything just flat out doesn't work.
Yeah.
To use an analogy that Rec here had devised, it's as if uh, we were saturated, just steeped in electricity. Everything grounds out immediately, and our technology has to be developed very differently, even if it operates on a lot of the same principles, just to account for the fact that we're constantly surrounded by this force. Um, so it takes a
And it's
really what?
uh I was go ahead, finish your thought.
Uh,
I'm putting a brush down right there.
okay, so it takes a lot more technological discovery to be able to even approach what they had before. Where some things, some aspects of it might flat out never be able to be reproduced. There are aspects of it
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
and things that carry over that they can use at least in principle. And
Yeah,
from
so
a
I was just gonna finish your sandwich right there and say the same thing, that it's not initially one for one, but a lot of the principles follow through.
mhm.
So yeah, you touched on it exactly. Brush removed.
Okay, and a lot of that technological advancement has to come from the ground up, using alternative sources to try to interact with uh, this this universal force in a way that is regulatable, which is where we start to see Bile being introduced in later parts of the album, or later albums. I don't think. Oh yeah, you do reference it in the first Legacy
What starts to be introduced?
album. Bile.
Bile,
So
which is a like natural biological ichor that gets saturated with Atrum's breath, the ambient magic, because there's not a living thing on Atrum that isn't part of this natural cycle of magic, um, and they all interact with it through various organs that create this ichor-like substance.
mhm.
Mm,
So
okay.
lots of stuff has pockets of this bile, and it's the first time that humanity gets to see the way the world interacts with this force in a way that is a little bit more understandable to them, because they'll see it glow red and then dim back down to blue. They'll see it more prominently in creatures or living organisms that are much more uh, magically potent or magically saturated. So it
Chaos. Chaos asks, is Atrum unique in that sense, or are there other worlds with that a magical aura? It's less of an aura and more like it's being blasted out. Um, kind like it radiates outwards. It's not held. It just kind of radiates outwards, and any celestial body with an active core in this universe has the same effect. And in fact, the only other world that we have explored in canon as of yet, which is called Barzil, has the same ambient magic. They don't all, much like gravity. It's different for each world. but kind of operates on the same basic principles.
Yeah, it's more or less the way it works on Atrum, just because that is the correct way that it is generally
Yeah.
expressed. But there are minor differences depending on the makeup of the celestial body. Yeah, it's like a star of magic.
Okay. Um, since you guys said you have thousands of years of lore and stuff, do humans start to evolve to fit better and be able to work with that magic?
Um.
Go ahead, take it away.
Also, side note, if I'm ever touching
Use a
on
fucking
something
tree.
that you guys aren't ready to talk about, you're
Uh,
welcome to be like,
yeah, we'll
Oh,
we'll
tell
discuss
you.
it at another point.
we'll say it. Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you firmly stating that though. So first off, Tavinia's a fucking tree, and that's hilarious.
Oh my god.
Am I wrong?
Yes.
Okay, you're right. You're right. Tavinia may have been swallowed by a tree.
Oh my god. Continue.
Um,
I will answer the question for you.
Humans never evolve, or at least up to the point that we are at. Um, like the most recent canon event, Voidfall.
Nah.
Humans have not yet. What? That's the
Oh yeah,
most
you're
recent
right. You're right. You're right.
canonized
You're right.
event.
You're
Yeah,
right. You're right.
yeah, yeah. Um, Humans has as of yet not evolved in any way to interact with the breath. There are mutations that have popped up throughout history through various means that have done some things similar, um, but large in part, humanity is a stain where the breath is concerned. It's not something that it interacts or plays well with. Whatever animating spark humanity has doesn't jive with the nature of breath, because they were birthed from a world where that was foreign.
Bear, when you ask a type of corruption, are you referring to the humans or the magic? For those who are just listening and not looking at chat, Yogi Bear asked, so kind of like a type of corruption. Um,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a little hard to discern what exactly.
oh, the bile.
The bio.
Oh no.
Oh,
It,
no.
it
It's kind of like how our organs process and metabolize things, and there's a waste or a second effect waste. It's the biological waste from processing breath like that. That's a natural process for them. It just creates this buildup in every organism over the course of its life.
it's a lot like a gallbladder
Yeah,
or the stones that some animals will eat.
yeah.
Although this is a lot more natural, they don't necessarily supplement it nutritionally, but it's just a thing that it is the answer to. So how come this thing can breathe fire or fly or whatever? And this is the interface that they biologically use to be able to tap into that powers. They have an organ saturated with a fluid that can interact with it, and
It's literally called a bile bladder, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, is so is the way that the animals and the natural fauna of Atrum more like interconnected, like an entire web connected throughout the world? Or is it just they have access, like they just naturally have access to this magic? Is
So
fauna included?
their connection is yes and yes. Fauna is included, but their connection is almost mycelic in nature. It's not a conscious connection by any means. It's almost like there's a small guiding hand to maintaining the balance of ecologies and the wax and wane of resources.
Okay.
So populations are almost intentionally controlled by nature, and almost intentionally. There is no consciousness. There is no joint like deity or anything like that. But everything kind of for the slightly and I'm saying slightly only to not piss off Z. For the slightly sentient native species on Atrum, because there are some, and there are some who can even speak and interact with humans. And you know what? Damn it, actually, they're people too. Um, fuck you, Z. But for them, it feels like being connected to everything around them, not like an extra sensory, but kind of just like a belonging. And it would also explain like sort of like that that weird subconscious paranoia that you get sometimes when somebody's watching you. it it's a hard point for us to lean on narratively for that. So like they would feel that through this connection, that sense of danger.
Okay. Hmm.
And then other creatures exploit that connection to hunt. And the swarm is one of those.
The swarm?
Take it away, Z.
The swarm is an invasive species on Atrum. They're big bug monsters. I have a I have a reference image that I can pull up here. So anybody interested in seeing what these cool bug monsters look like, you can jump over to my channel
Are you gonna make me do work?
real quick. I mean, you don't have to see it, but
No,
you're
I
better
I'm
off
watching you
seeing
play with a sword and shield, dude, or two swords. My bad.
it. Oh yeah, I'm animating my Raiden thing. So let
Fuck
me
yeah.
see if I can add a new image or change the image here.
First off, amazing picture.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty good
You
one.
do great work.
It's a pretty good one. So you exist inside of just the icon. So right down here. Oh, you're a big boy. Oh, I should have
Thank you.
copied it. Not you.
Oh,
This is what they
look,
look
man.
like. They
Go ahead.
are a highly adaptive
You.
species that exists.
Okay.
That their driving motivation is basically just nom nom nom. They eat things. Um,
So the what is it? God, I'm gonna probably get this wrong. The predator alien thing? That's what it looks like.
it does look a lot like that, and that's where I drew a lot of the inspiration from when creating it.
How big are they? Are they like
Varying
larger
sizes
than
depending on
humans?
class of what it is.
Oh, great. That's very descriptive.
I mean,
um,
so they operate as large hives. So there's varying classes um, of swarm with operating within a hive based off of need and the niche that it fills in the hive's like
so
hierarchy and cycle.
this one hunched over as an average of its species would be like 5 feet to the tallest point there, maybe, and like
Okay.
8 or 9 feet long with its tail extended. Like
Thank you
these
for that
things
follow,
are
Yogi.
So
the
super fucking scary. Got it.
Yogi.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
thank you for the
hella,
follow.
hella.
Yeah, they are vicious, and part of their adaptability is whenever they're faced with a threat, they relay the information of that threat to their queen, and all subsequent generations are adapted to resist against it. So it's incredibly important when you're fighting these things to wipe out every last one of them, because any survivor will pass on that genetic history or that genetic memory onto its surviving species.
Okay.
Now, as I understand it, that's there are diminishing returns on that, because if a specific trait is not beneficial for a fair amount of time, it's no longer beneficial to
Right.
include. Yeah. So something that worked in ages past may work again. Um, but then you'll have to wait a long fucking time to play the same trick, essentially.
Yep.
Okay. Hmm.
So that's what
What is
the swarm is.
okay? What is something in all of the lore for both of you, and I'm guessing is going to be vastly different things, that you are most excited about?
Go ahead, Kev.
No, you go first. You go first. I'm thinking. That's a complicated question. I like the question.
Parts of the lore that I'm most excited about. Um,
Hmm.
Probably all the parts that I'm fleshing out myself. If I wasn't interested in them, I wouldn't be fleshing them out. For example, the wiki that we have, or the soft wiki that I keep, was largely as an answer for me being able to flesh out aspects of the lore that are largely um, irrespective of the rest of the world, like until they become relative. So I'll cook for a while and I'll come back to rec and I'll be like, hey, so fun fact, here's how culture works in Arcanus. Because of the fact that they are effectively the breadbasket of the world that feeds the rest of the empire. Um, they have a lot of flourish and ritual to their cooking, as a result of being both plentiful with food and also heavily steeped in religious dogma. So that is expressed through their food in the form of a lot of weird ritual, like you would see in Japanese tea ceremonies,
Hmm.
or in a lot of French cooking, where you take just the tiniest bit of an ingredient out in order to use it for a much more complex dish. So I'm
Okay.
excited about anything that allows me to be able to visit the culture of Arx Arcanus, because I've had a lot of fun playing in it. But the
Hmm.
whole empire as a whole and how they interact with each other is also really interesting. Like whenever we get to work out political intrigue between the different major factions, um, is pretty fun too. Because this
Okay.
world's kind of an awful place. It's kind of an awful place in where things are consistently bad, either because they did it to themselves or because the world sucks.
Yeah.
Fair
There's
enough.
no point in which this world has any chill.
Mm-hmm.
This absolutely explains, Rack, why, God, I think it was a month ago when I was at your house, and we made a joke about living in a world of your own creation, and you were like, "Oh God, no, I don't want to do that. My world sucks."
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it it's not great being an average motherfucker in our world. You're definitely dying to something trying to eat you at some point.
Yep.
Um, there there are some ages actually in which that's not the case.
Yeah, that's true, but those are pockets of good in an otherwise uh, bleak and terrible place.
Yeah.
Okay. So Rack, it's your turn.
Yeah. What aspects of the world are you interested in in exploring, branching into 40k
So it's a
back.
little it's a little self-serving, but I feel like I'm afforded the ability to get excited over pockets of this story as I get to tell it through the albums. Um, and so I got I got really hype on the genesis of our canon through the album Genesis, and like thinking of what the cradle was like, and which led to further fleshing out of the political structure and how those events actually went down, because prior to that we had kind of only hand waved it as it's all myth anyway, um, which is fantastic, but it was still fun living in that and trying to figure out what that was like and collaborating with you on those events. And yeah, so it's not any one thing. It's as I because I intend the legacy project, for as far as my albums go, to just continue walking through the ages.
Mm-hmm.
um and so I see that as a chance to live through all of it and flesh it out that much more. And so I'm excited to just walk through our history.
Okay. Uh, because I didn't know there was a short story written to this. At some point, Z, I would love if it's published or public in some way. I'd love to be
Did
able to
you
read
ever make
that.
it public, actually?
I don't think so. I think there's
Oh,
a pass of review that I want to. I think there's a grammatical pass that I want to do to it, but I'll get you an advanced version of that so you don't have to wait for me to sit on my hands.
Branching into some 40k level politics. My apologies. I just saw that, and yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, they kind of defined grimdark a bit, especially in the modern era, and this definitely has a lot of grimdark to it.
Yep.
well, now I'm gonna pull up my talking points that I wrote out earlier.
um, so also to go back to a question that you asked a little bit ago about humanity evolving,
Mhm.
um, to utilize breath in any way. And I said that there were some mutations that popped up through various means. And I kept, and I made the joke about Tavinia being a tree. So,
Mhm.
Tavinia, uh, what did we land on? Is she still called the Avatar of Life?
I
I
don't think
think
that
so,
we've
right? Because
revisited that.
Matthias is the Avatar of Death. Yeah. And we just have them as two sides of that coin, kind of like day and night.
Mm.
Um, I mean, we can visit that real quick and define it. That
Yeah.
we're here.
Define
As
what
long
it.
as you're comfortable, um, like proper title for Tivinia and Matthias. We're still going with Avatar of Death for Matthias. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm okay
Okay.
with her sticking with life. I
Okay.
think the other ones had gotten a little more loosey goosey to where they are now. Uh, like at Pirion and Rockwest weren't always the avatars of day and night necessarily. There was a period where I think Rockwest was the avatar of mind, and uh, Pyrion was the avatar of spirit, something like that.
Yeah, there was various iterations, but that was when we also had them taking on a mantle of Avatar while they were alive slash present.
Right.
Whereas now it's a post mortem or post Exodus title that is kind of assigned in the deifying of these figures,
Mm-hmm.
not something they took on in life, and in fact would have stayed away from any sort of godhead while they were present.
Sure.
That was probably a lot of words, soup, that I just did. I suddenly realized.
Soup.
It's good soup.
So you guys,
Akin to sainthood, exactly, Chaos.
yeah, you guys keep referring to them as avatars. Um, and I know in part of that, or at least I can figure out, and part of that is due to the fact that they were once alive. Um, though you specifically, Breck, avoided saying that they died because you keep saying, well, they were present, or uh, what word did you use? But you can tell I read too
Died
much
slash
theory
Exodus.
crafting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for that follow. Like LeBron. I guess I like LeBron. LeBron ain't bad. I mean, never did anything to me. So thumbs up. Um, yeah. So
So
we haven't actually decided where we haven't canonized yet where we land on what happened to the avatars. Their exodus from society was definitely intentional.
okay.
We don't know if that was if they've died or if they are gone, just gone. Just we haven't yet lined up on that, and we like leaving that in the grave in case we want to use them later.
Yep.
Okay.
Within their lifetime, it's recorded that through various means they each um, came across a form of biological immortality, not meaning that they can't die, but that they wouldn't of age. Um, which were extensions of life extension programs that existed on the cradle, um, just taken to a much taken in a much more arcane direction. Um, and in fact, in later ages, Tavinia, the Avatar of Life, um, it's culturally assumed that she's still alive, that she turned into a tree
Ah.
in Ark's Arborist. That's not that's not um and it's culturally known or assumed that way to Ark's Arborist specifically. Um
Yeah,
but
they believe
it's
that
not
she
like she's
became a sort
talking.
of world
Yeah.
tree.
Yeah. It's not like she's talking or anything like that. Um
Okay.
the only avatar still alive in Common Era, which is so as a Voidfall, is Matthias, but not present.
Right.
Okay.
Just kind
Um,
of in Jacarudis, the Necropolis, chilling, doing weird edgy
Bear,
shit.
uh, Bear asked if these avatars are similar to the embodiment of true words, or just entities that obtain power, which begs the question of do they actually have power, or is it just the idea of this is what they control? Like, the idea of Thor controlling the skies and thunder,
Right.
where
So these are individuals who actually wrote the books on the sciences of magic in this world, and penned the instruments and tools, um, or forged the instruments and tools that later generations even used to interact with these forces. Um, so it's kind of one of those uh, like knowledge is power sort of things.
okay,
They definitely are do eventually become like singly powerful, each one of them in their own way. Um, but each of those also happens in different ways. You want to expand on that, Z?
Yeah, that's pretty fair. A lot of the association that they've gained over the course of their own individual legacies uh, is what caused them to be aligned with these avatar type um, flavors, I guess, if you will. for example, Tavinia had in her life, in the life that she had been active and present for and seen in, had done a lot with healing and curing and making sure that everybody was fed. A lot of her philosophy was on growing deep roots to be able to withstand storms. Um, Whereas a lot of the things that Pyrion is known for, especially as a result of an entire religion basically being made around him, is seen as sort of a sun god, where originally he was a champion for the people, and he brought a new dawn for humanity, or he helped bring a new dawn for humanity. Later, do those words become a lot more are seen a
Literal.
lot more literally, where not only is he bringing the new dawn, he is the dawn. He is the light that shows you the way. So as this religion begins to build around him, so too does that mythos. Um, so these avatar mantles start off as just general associations that are both poetic and somewhat accurate, and get blown entirely out of proportion. But like you said, they are incredibly powerful. And this definitely leads to how impactful they are culturally. But it's not something that they undertook for themselves. It is a label
Yeah.
that the people gave for them because that's how they saw them. They saw them as avatars of these aspects because as they reached out to try to find meaning in an otherwise violent and meaningless world, they found comfort in being able to attribute these labels, these romantic and poetic labels, to these figures that have risen over the course of time and had such a firsthand account or firsthand influence in directing the future and survival of humanity.
Okay.
Thank you for that follow.
I got one.
I can't believe you just put that word front and center. Motherfucker's name is Mr. Peen.
Pioneers of their times, yes, Yogi.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, you, Rack, mentioned earlier that, like, early on, that they all live with the genetic proof, um, of their transition to, the new world. Like, you had
Oh,
maybe not genetic proof,
the
uh,
like
genetic
genetic scar.
scar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Is
yeah.
that, like, what does that look like? Is that a
It's
cultural thing
not
or
so
like
literal. Not so literal. It's more of um. Okay, take the popularized Genesis, the Garden of
Mhm.
Christendom, um, and imagine if we all remembered, in a sense, the taking of that fruit and the banishment from the garden. Like we had a sense of that loss that's just passed on in all of our oral history, all of our song, things like this, things like that. There's always a touch of loss and of mourning. So it's something that's just ever present culturally. They they're just aware of that fall from grace, as it were. They're aware of what they've lost, of what came first, even if they don't know what to call it. Even if to them
Interesting.
it was heaven itself, they lost heaven.
Okay.
Is that too vague?
Um, it's not too vague. I'm gonna sit on that information and talk with you about it later.
Z, was
I
that right? Is there anything that needs to be corrected?
You lost me in the forest somewhere. I don't even remember what the question was.
It was about
a genetic
hold on,
scar.
I've got
And
going off of my ear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that you lean into a little bit more. There isn't a literal genetic scar. There is a cultural scar.
It's
Mm-hmm.
cultural. It's something that is just kind of
It's a lot like if it's a lot like if British people cared more about the entirety of the British Museum.
Shots.
Huh?
Don't take shots.
No. I'm saying, like, right now the general attitude is, yeah, everything in the British Museum isn't ours. It's from all over the place. But if they had a lot more, I mean, that's a lot less personally guiltful of, like, oh, that's ours now. We reclaimed that, where otherwise would have been lost to time, as opposed to a personal guilt that might be felt by a group of people. So it's a lot that kind of stain. It might be somewhat relatable to Germans living nowadays, in the way that they see
Mm-hmm.
the Nazi Party, where it's like an unfortunate part of our history, and we have cultural conflicts about how we express our pride in our country because of the way that some people have expressed it. So there's always going, like, people will always be proud of where they come from. The German people will always have pride in being German, but there will forever be that. But also, there will always be a little asterisk there going, but also, I do or do not support the actions of my country under these circumstances. So in this case, the way that this scene culture is culturally is, we came from somewhere. This atrium here is my home. This is where I was born. This is where I was raised. But I will always feel lost for the fact that I'll never be able to know what this perfect utopia that we came from was like. That is entirely unobtainable. So it is a cultural loss that is felt in some distant way by everybody.
Okay. That makes sense. Uh, um, you mentioned earlier that the cradle was a utopia, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Explain that a little bit. How does magic interact with technology and with humans in the original world? And how the change to the new world affects that? Other than just their technology no longer works with the magic. Like,
So it was
to go from
it
a
was utopian
utopia
because
to
they were beyond resource scarcity with their level of technology, which was utilizing it was essentially solar power,
Mhm.
a very very filtered and modified form of breath that radiates from stars because
Mhm.
that's all that was present for them. um so you want to take this further, Z?
Yeah, this is. I mean, the part of the reason why you're struggling here is this is one of those aspects where we intentionally left a little bit vague, because the details of what it was like there are largely irrelevant and somewhat um, flexible for when we write later parts of the story. Um, so what we know is that, like you said, it's beyond scarcity. Magic interacts a lot more like a resource that you have to harvest and collect and maintain carefully lest you lose it, um, because of how difficult it is to obtain. Eh, But that how it was utilized there is a lot more um, soft magicy, because
Mhm.
we like to allow that to become to be a lot more flexible for narrative reasons. For
Mhm.
example, the faithless Exodus, uh, the device that was created in order to slip them from the cradle to Atrium,
Loved your
is
use of the word intentionally, by the way.
huh?
To slip them. Love your
Yes,
use of the intentional word.
yes.
I just wanted to point that out.
That was that gives a glimpse into like the fringes of their science, which is they didn't really have teleportation, but they had devices which could create spell engines, which would allow you to move stuff interdimensionally to other places. So you get a general idea that they've sort of mastered their limited access to this magical force, but have also been limited because of how little they
How
have
little
access
they.
to. Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it,
Um.
yeah, go ahead.
So my question was more, anytime that you have a utopia that then its entire basis for how it's run disappears. Uh,
So it actually didn't.
so
It was translated. I can take this. The political thing, like structure and intrigue, is one that I've played into a lot, except for where Arcanist is concerned.
Well, I just
That's
want to
all.
make sure I understand her question correctly.
Okay.
Go ahead and
so
finish the thought.
so
My
I'm more
apologies.
talking about like they were beyond scarcity and they end up in this new world. Are they now having to figure out how to create food again? And is it different food because they're in a new world? And how the people react to this because they've been in a utopia their entire life. How do you then have to go, oh fuck, I don't have food. I don't know how to make food. I don't know how this works. What do we do now? And it's not any food that I understand because we're in a new world. Did they bring seeds along? Did they start to terraform with stuff from the old world? Like, was that part of the plan? Um, how did that affect things culturally? Um, like your entire life, it would be as if someone from the US who lives in a like mid-class family is then put into a third world country and been and told live.
Um. Yeah. So in response to, did they bring any seeds or any way to feed themselves from the cradle? Absolutely. There were both flora and fauna um, that made the traversal on the ark with them, and each of those gets changed over time as they farm them, as they rear them from that landscape, um, and that like they're still represented eons later in familiar animal shapes and things like that. Uh, However, what makes them fall backwards from that lack of resource scarcity is that they were at a point where they were um, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost. So they had techno reliance. So
Mhm.
imagine if we were compositing material out of raw particles.
Yeah.
And that was the. I'm not saying that they have a one for one for this technology, and I'm not canonizing that by any means. Z, we can address that later. This is
Yeah,
just an
go on.
analogy. Um, but so if we were compositing materials out of directly out of like particles, and that was the we would pull raw, we would mine raw, and then use raw to composite anything else we needed, and that was what we relied on for all of our resources. Um, Outside of those reared from the land itself, then such as livestock and like fruits and veg. Um, and then the technology that we relied on to be able to composite that material was suddenly rendered inert because
Mm-hmm.
the environment in which it operated was no longer present. we
Mm-hmm.
now we now have no way to create the resources we rely on for everything else, and we have to learn how to composite materials from the ground up again in a foreign world. So operating with maybe the same basic principles as far as metallurgy goes, but actually fundamentally different because this world is fundamentally different. It has an active core. It's been radiating breath into these materials. It's changed them in unique ways. So we are having to relearn basic metallurgic principles in a world that seems to have an additional force of nature that modifies most of our mechanisms and artificery. So we have scientific principles. We still know math, and we can create. We know language to describe scientific advancement and technological advancement, but we have no foundation for any of those actual trees for technological advancement anymore. We have to start back over. A chip, a computer chip, just won't work in this environment. So computers fundamentally can never work. How do we arrive at the same answers, essentially?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that just has echo effects through everything else. So the last of those individuals that they had elected to positions of leadership, one, it was because of their decisions that all of humanity that exists still exists. So what they did succeeded in the eyes of the survivors.
Mm-hmm.
So they're heroes, and they're still willing to continue to lead. So they just continue to lead for extended lifetimes. However, those individuals also insist on elected officials to act as additional seats on a council that makes governing decisions because they didn't want to move too far away from the idealized form of government that the cradle had. In their lifetime, they didn't. They kept trying to maintain to the things that gave birth to that utopian um, society because it was in that, although a militarized form of that, that they saw humanity being able to potentially outlive the coming dark because they see the dark as inevitable. It was I meandered a lot there. Did I answer the question?
Um, sort of. So just to confirm, essentially humanity went back in civilization by quite a few ages, as in
Yeah.
like say we're in a steel age now, they went back to like bronze or something like that, because of just losing the ability for so much technology. Did that knowledge make it through the thousands of years, like as humans developed a life on this new world? Is that knowledge still present? Or is it lost knowledge of, yeah, we used to have these amazing, beautiful, cool things. Uh, we no longer know how to do that
A
because
lot.
it became irrelevant.
No. Yes and no. Again, depending on your cultural background and education level, you either know of wondrous machines of the heaven, the cradle that came before, or you know of a technological basis that is um, not applicable to this world. You know that there were different scientific, like, governing forces for a world that came before, the cradle that came before. So an academic minded person would know that information, where many people, because it doesn't matter for their life, would think of it in a more mythological, like from a more mythological point of view.
Okay, so kind of the mindset of uh like in
The
other
information is
fantasy
present, but not
worlds.
everybody has it. Yeah.
Yeah, in other dystopian fantasy worlds, instead of, because most of them refer to humans being the problem, instead of looking back on all of the technological advances that we made and were subsequently lost as a bad thing, it would still be revered and seen as a good thing of like we used to have these amazing technological advances, but we no longer live with that because it's just not possible anymore. So that like dystopian mindset of the past being this awe-inspiring, very advanced world, um, that we don't have anymore.
Uh, exactly. And that's also echoed age by age, because the age of the avatars, when they were living in present, and the progressive sciences that they pushed forward, um, that was, technologically speaking, more advanced by far than the ages that follow afterwards.
Hmm.
So that's something that just kind of repeats itself through history on Atrum, is that every age that comes next is worse.
Yeah.
What
It's
causes that? Is it just because the like is
Degradation of
no
society
one?
for various reasons, such as greed, lust for power, people being people, um,
hordes of
and
bugs.
then also external forces such as swarm invasions, the dark coming back in the Voidfall crisis.
Uh, the
Um,
avatars leaving in the second age, or rather the
yeah,
avatars
that's a huge change.
disappearing. It also takes with them that huge wealth of accumulated knowledge and
Yeah.
figurative and literal power. Um,
Okay.
because their intention is to design structures that will outlast them, having looked directly into the face of cosmic mortality. Um, and so,
Yeah.
uh,
That's well put. Cosmic mortality.
yeah, and so by
I
the
like
time
that.
that they leave, it's up to the devices that they've set to run and to operate, and the people don't run them very well for a lot of different reasons, foreseen and unforeseen.
Okay, now I can't just stop asking the question of, did they not have like proteges or apprentices that they tried to teach all of their knowledge to?
Oh no,
To
they did, and bits and pieces of it remain and echo throughout the ages.
Mm-hmm.
But also eventually, um, that that mantle of information becomes a mantle of power, and power
ah,
is inevitably abused.
yeah, okay.
One example of that is in attempting to maintain a both a record of the past and a living library of the the magic that was being developed. Um, Pyrion, he would take on several um, proteges, people who would just follow him around, learn from him, take down notes for him, in an attempt to try to absorb as much as they could. And part of the system that he left behind was for an elected group of people to be able to help maintain and arbitrate the use of the information that was gathered. You travel several hundred, maybe a couple thousand years down the line, and that turns into a full blown religion where not only do people who no longer have a firsthand connection to this person start misinterpreting the words that are written down, willfully or not. But eventually, people who are just hungry for power start using these systems to redesign them in a more uh, in a more centralized capacity in order to be able to weaponize them, in order to be able to keep themselves in power. So what started off as a a group of um, magistrates, I think, who helped watch over this massive library of information, eventually becomes a group of archbishops, with a sort of a sort of hegemon at the top that now claims to literally have the keys to the kingdom, because not only are they keepers of all information, are they not only are they keepers of how magic works, but they also have what look like divine beings justifying their efforts, because part of the tools that are left behind are large and powerful, and a lot of it is beyond conventional human comprehension. So when these tools start being flexed in order to demonstrate your divine authority, then a lot of people start falling in line, where it's like, well, yeah, he's got fucking angels on his side. Who the hell am I to argue? Um, so you start off with Pyrion trying to make sure that the information just stays alive, and you end up with eventually it being not only taken out of hand, but also people willfully trying to use it for power. And then you later on down the line have a an Empyrean encompassing religion that places this avatar at the top and uses a lot of the words and uh, tools that were left behind to justify keeping themselves in power or exercising that power in ways that they see fit.
Okay. Yeah, that's like how the Catholic Church for a really long time didn't um very few people were taught Latin unless
Mm-hmm.
they were like highly educated. But they still did sermons and stuff in Latin, so the only people who actually knew what the Bible said were those who were highly educated or part of the church.
Right.
Um, and it
I mean,
was,
they outright changed the Latin language as well. It's a
yeah,
different language that's spoken by the church, ecclesiarchal Latin. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
See, my bad. Yeah.
Um, and it was a great way to keep people in line because you had to just trust that what they were saying was true and what was written.
Right.
Okay. Um, so going back to the avatars, um, because you kind of started to mention uh like the two for life and death. One, how many of them are there? Like who were these important figures um who moved them to this new world, and what are they generally associated with now in their godlike status?
Um. So there's three of them actually, and that's Rockwus, Pyrion, and Tavinia.
Okay.
Um. The first elected advisor of Archangelus when it's formed. So the individual who was the steward of Archangelus, elected to lead it. His name was Matthias,
Mm-hmm.
and he fucked the job up royally. Let
Okay.
the whole place burn down. Let zombies get up and start eating people, and then he just burned the dead everywhere, which is a big cultural no-no. Burning the human form is sacrilege. The human form is seen as sacred,
Okay.
and the legacy must be preserved. It's part of that whole
Ah.
cultural scar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so he fucked up royally, and they kicked him the fuck out. But they had problems with dead getting back up from time to time, and it wasn't great. So they started to move their dead to a necropolis in the north that the Matthias, the banished dude, was made to like steward over, kind of as a punishment. Um, and later on, much later on, culturally, he is seen as the avatar of death,
Hmm.
even though he was not one of them. And it's not a title of veneration. It is kind of a spit
Yeah. It's
because
like this dude was
yeah,
awesome and he brought the day. This dude was awesome and he brought the night. This dude sucked and killed everyone.
yeah,
That's his legacy.
yeah. So he's
Okay.
remembered as an avatar, the avatar of death, because for all that the other three did, and Tavinia being the avatar of life,
Hmm.
he still managed to suck. um
Just to confirm, because
and
a lot of people tend to, with life and death, put some type of romanticized relationship there. Tavinia and Matthias never
ah
had any type of connection.
Nope.
no,
Well,
they
not
actually did.
romantic, but they did have a
Not
relation to each other.
political,
Mm-hmm.
entirely political. Well, not entirely political because Tavinia was also Matthias's mentor.
Okay.
Um, but there was a large political affiliation, which is what led to Matthias being elected to the role of the first advisor, and like to begin with.
Okay.
And something that he struggled to step out of the shadow of was being essentially the nepo hire by Tavinia for the seat because Tavinia was so popular
Okay.
at the time. That changes. Fucking
So
trade.
then, God, I'm so bad with names. Tavinia, the original three.
Tavinia, Rockwus, and Pyrion.
Yeah. Um, they were originally the head of their school of knowledge, correct? Like in the
Multiple schools
cradle.
of thought and sciences. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, elected to be the ones in charge of this project to bring humans to the new world. Um,
yeah.
and then from there,
It
they
was like humanity's
continued,
Hail Mary
yeah.
and like a
Uh,
Manhattan Project all in one.
from there, they continued in leadership roles to try to help humans adjust to the new world as much as possible. And because they were uh, the heads of their Jesus, brain is not working today. Uh, they
Of
were
their
the heads
schools
of
of
their
thought and
school of thought.
sciences.
Um, they were also the most knowledgeable going into this new world for their
Um,
specific area of like expertise.
in their lifetimes, it. So realistically, it was them and teams of people and understudies and assistants and
Hmm.
other people that they relied on. But they were the figureheads of those sciences and schools of thought. And there was also a lot of collaboration, specifically between Arcanus and Artifice. So Rockwest and his team, and Pyrion and his team, for a number of very impactful projects that have ramifications for ages to come. Um, so yeah, realistically, it was groups of people, but it all gets attributed just to them.
Okay.
It's Oppenheimer. And I don't mean the movie. I actually haven't seen it, but referring to how that individual is
Mm,
associated with a lot of things that a team of people working with him as a figurehead actually accomplished.
okay. I'm glad you explained that because before the movie, I actually had no clue about Oppenheimer, so and I still haven't seen the movie.
Doing by.
Yeah, I'm running out of things to ask. We covered a lot
Um, we have. We have.
without going into just straight
Watch
up
Oppenheimer.
stories. So,
Z, was there anything that needs to be corrected from what I spewed on the avatars and all that jazz?
Uh, Not really. Not really. A lot of the story happens after the avatars. For
Yeah,
example, the avatars leave partway through the second age,
second age.
and
And
the timeline that we span goes to 5 ages. Um, so we have a lot of stuff that happens after they leave, and a lot of it is a domino effect of what the world looks like after they've lost these massive resources. So at the end of the second empire, or at the end of the second age, during what's known as the first empire, that's when things really start getting tested. When a great pestilence comes in, because one thing that wasn't mentioned is when humanity first lands on Atrum. Uh,
oh
the
yeah, the
world is
Leviathan.
the world is populated with these apex predators called Leviathan, that they eventually culturally call Leviathans. Um, and these apex predators are enormous bioforms that that effectively stem a lot of the unmitigated growth of the world. So they eat forests. They cull herds. There isn't a ton of them, but they are incredibly impactful. The world was basically inhabited by Godzillas. So,
Godzilla.
as a direct result of that, as soon as humanity lands and starts trying to get its footing, um, they attract the attention of the local megafauna, these leviathans, who now see that there is a new interesting thing to try to eat. The humans
mm,
in cultivating the land and in killing all of the swarm the swarms that have been attacking them from the moment that they landed effectively start attracting the hunger of these megafauna who see vast amounts of resources being accumulated in a small place. And it's
right,
as a result of having absolutely nothing to be able to defend themselves against these titanic creatures that they abandon the ark in the southern plains of the southern plains of the continent and move north, where they eventually end up settling in a cold and mountainous area that is devoid of a lot of resources, but mostly and most importantly, devoid of megafauna. There are no leviathans where they are because the resources are so low. There isn't a lot of food, there isn't a lot of vegetation, but there's just enough to be able to eke out a sort of survival. So the first stronghold that they ever create is Archangelus, which is established at the peak of Mount Angeles. And that is where humanity kind of finds its home for a really long time and ends up becoming the most important part of their post cradle cultural history. Is this is not just like where we are, this is our safe haven, this is our home, this is the only place that we can know any kind of safety is inside of these walls. I like to think that the icon that they use for the Ark's Imperium, which is the A with a dot inside of it, represents both the mountain and humanity's little structure at its peak, kind of nestled there, showing that that is the heart of humanity, while also representing the A that the Ark's Imperium brandishes. So it becomes a huge cultural staple for them, and it's not until later on down the line where Pyrian moves back south to try to reclaim any amount of resources from the remains of the Ark that they discover that they can kind of retrofit a lot of what was left behind. Um, and
at least for short-term use.
Yeah, very short-term use.
It fries it, and this is where we lose a lot of technology forever.
Yeah, because we kind of burn them out in order to be able to go on this crusade to clear out the megafauna. So the end result is most of the leviathans are driven to extinction, but we effectively permanently lose all of that ancient technology, um, in an effort to make that happen.
Okay.
And in the albums, I refer to the Leviathan as dragons.
Mm.
Well, now you're just leaving me with more questions.
Good. Ask me.
Fire away.
Uh.
Also, let us know if you're coming up on a stop for time.
Oh.
I'm good, but I don't know about y'all's timeline.
No, I'm good.
Because we're 2 hours in.
Yeah, you're both good. I'm gonna fall asleep as soon as this is done.
Sure.
My brain's not really working much anymore.
Do we have anybody in chat who would like to step in and play mediator and can pick up the torch, so to speak? Because I want to afford you the opportunity to get your much deserved rest.
No sleep.
And the rest, and if we do continue after this, the rest of it will be available on YouTube, and I'll shoot you the link to it
Never
so
sleep.
that you can follow that. That's my mantra. I do not preach what I practice. See.
Never ever sleep. Sleeping is for nerds.
We have quiet fucking chat.
Yeah.
Picks. You think you can pick that up?
Hey, yeah, I got a question. What the fuck is going on?
Oh my god.
What are
Vibe
you nerds up
shift. Vibe shift.
Mr. Peen, I'm going to assume that was directed towards me. Thank you.
Okay, so I mean, I got a few questions because I came in here fucking blind. I had no idea what was
being that was directed at you, you fucking eyeball.
Yeah,
I came in like
I'm
came
resplendent.
In the chat early on accident, and Rick was like, "Oh, this is what's going on, by the way," and yeah, just listen for a bit. I'm confused. What is this a lore to? What is this? Is it just like lore that you guys are crafting? What's going on?
It's an IP that we utilize for most of our projects. Few of which have actually landed in the public eye until recently with the albums.
Right.
Although hopefully here soon, Mr. Floating Eyeball Man releases his short story because it's fantastic and it should see the light of day. God damn it.
You're right. I want to make sure it's as good as it can be.
I got you. I also liked the movie with Jack Nicholson, as good as it gets.
Great.
First off, before we go any further, Charm, thank you so much for leading this charge and mediating and kicking us off like that. You did a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
Definitely helped guide the stream or torrent rather of consciousness that I am, and the absolute encyclopedia that Z is.
Yeah, so Z, you may not know this, but I have been asking since the first album came out. I was like, I need the story. I need the answers. I need to know.
I was like, I can't really do this without Z. It's hard to.
Hello there, Watermelony.
Lily, what's up?
Yeah, so that's what this is born of is me asking Rec to please give me answers, and he's like, this is
What does any of this
a lot.
mean?
Please give me answers. No.
The first
for
time was
inactivity.
actually what he did.
That's fair.
We were texting, and he was like, "I'm not doing this over text," and so I was just
Yeah,
with a no, and I'm like,
hell to the no, am I doing that over text? Oh my god.
I was
We're
like,
2 hours in and we ain't scratched it.
Yeah. But thank you guys for indulging in my questions, and getting to live in y'all's world a little bit. I absolutely love it, and I want more answers. And I will be watching this on YouTube when I wake up, to catch up on everything that I miss. So
I'll have to get it up as soon as possible then.
as soon as possible.
I walked right into that one, dude, with arms wide open. Thank you for that.
But anyways, so how long has this been crafted?
Better part of a decade. Yeah.
Side note, bye guys. Have a wonderful evening.
John,
good night.
I'll be messaging you here.
I'll
be messaging you here in a second with the
link. Okay.
I ain't even been alive for a decade.
You guys all have fun. Goodbye. Good night.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Okay.
So, what started the crafting itself? So my questions are going to be mostly about the whole thought of the crafting of the lore itself.
Okay. I'll fuck with that.
So, what started this whole?
So how the sausage got made?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you've always had like had a thing for just crafting lore in general.
Yeah. I'm an absolute and total motherfucking nerd. You're right.
All the way back to like fucking like middle school.
Yeah. Here's a little bit of lore for you, Corey. Because you are privy to that deep shit. You know that language that I wrote?
Oh, there you go. Yes.
Yeah, that is in this canon.
Wasn't it like a language that you made for the Zaclinians?
No, for the Nocturne.
Was like originally.
It started as Zaclinian, you're right.
There we go. Yeah, see? I know the deep lore, man. I was there when it was written.
Fuck me. All right. Thank you, Lily, by the way, for the Popeye. Yeah.
Mr. Payne, it is for anything that we want to creatively explore. We can dip our pens into this universe in order to be able to explore it. It's functionally.
Our development company ArxTech has a shelved games project that takes place within this canon. Mm-hmm. Every one of the albums that I've released under the Legacy Project name are telling stories pertaining to the canon for this universe or a window into it. Be that with artistic license. So it's not like one for one and it's not literal. But yeah, that's the premise and the setting for it. As well as a short story that Zeno has worked on and I'm hoping is public facing before we die.
I'm not.
Is it like
I'm not Martin. I'll
like
publish this bitch.
Of an average like character, or is it like a lore heavy character that the short story is perspective of?
It's not a lore heavy character. It's just a person who lived in this world and what it's like for them to live in this world.
Although the person does become lore important.
Yeah,
but like that's kind of the thing with this much history to play in is people are important in windows and in pockets. It depends on the scope you look at it. So there's only a few figures that are important throughout the entire scope, but there's many people who are important for smaller windows of that time.
Right. I heard it like touched on a little bit in the beginning. The overall aesthetic of it.
Yeah.
Like what exactly are you going for with the aesthetic? Is it like a
grim dark mana punk, leaning towards like ecclesiarchal high fantasy for Arcanist. It kind of changes regionally. We have a lot of cultural distinctions.
Yeah.
But it all kind of has that same grim dark mana punk fantasy feel to it. Right. That's all of its root.
Do you have any like pseudo elves in this type of a universe?
No. But we do have
the closest we have the dryad is the closest thing we have.
All right, let's dive into that a bit. Let's talk about races. What kind of races do you guys got? I heard you talk about the Leviathans.
So those are big ass beasts. Those are kaiju style beasts.
Yeah,
they ain't a sentient species.
And I heard about the Zerg, the swarm. Sorry,
the Zerg.
You sneezed.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Allegedly.
Legally distinct Zerg.
Legally distinct Zerg.
And I like to think that the reason they work is much less nonsensical than the Zerg.
Well, I mean, the Zerg themselves can be just seen as like a legally distinct Tyranids.
Yes.
Or the Xenos.
No, you're right. Yeah. They're legally distinct Tyranids, and the Tyranids are legally distinct Xenomorphs. It's all stolen all the way down.
Yeah.
I don't feel even a little bad.
Okay. What other kinds of races do you have inhabiting this?
I appreciate you.
This universe you got here.
So that depends on your point of view, because this motherfucker's gonna say there's just humans.
Well, okay, so you got humans like that went down different evolutionary paths or something?
No, but there are demi-humans.
Humans are from a completely different world. They're not from this world.
Okay.
Humans are aliens. So you missed the beginning part.
Yeah, man, I was locked into the game, you know.
That's fair. Humans humans are from a world called the Cradle. And they ran away from an extinction level event, destroying their world, and came to Atrum.
Right, I've heard this part.
Yeah.
And so the Cradle is basically like Garden of Eden type deal.
That's how people remember it, kind of culturally. Yeah.
Yeah, rose-tinted goggles.
Yeah.
Glasses, rather. World of Warcraft.
No, those are goggles.
But yeah, so like humans are humans, and they're not from here, so they didn't go down any evolutionary path. They're still just kind of people. But there are native species that were heavily impacted on Atrum by humanity's arrival.
It's just like you're these fucking monkeys showing up.
Yeah. But they're super advanced space wizard monkeys.
Okay, so you said that there are species there that were impacted by it, but Xeno says that there's only humans. What's the?
Well, there are demi-humans. You're asking what kind of species there are, and I think it's a much more general term. So as far as the species that we have named, we have, like you said, we have the Leviathans. We have a lot of Earth life that was brought over from the Cradle. We have humanity. We have demi-humans, which are humans that have changed over the course of time, not necessarily through natural evolution, but just through circumstance. We have, as far as the stuff that we're currently working with, mostly just that. There's the native life to Atrum, but that's varied and contains all sorts of nonsense.
When Rick earlier mentioned they're people too, who the fuck was he talking about?
Fucking goblins, dude.
Goblins, all right. Fucking goblins.
Fucking goblins. I love goblins. Goblins are amazing.
And you know, why would you not consider them sentient?
They're not sentient.
By what metric?
Because they're not. They are. Would you consider AI sentient, or the manifestation of a bunch of decisions being made through logic? In this case, they are the result of.
Is that not what we are?
Many experience. Well, kind of, but these are. Okay. So, getting down to brass tacks. One aspect of Atrim's life is a group of creatures called that humans colloquially call goblins. This is everything. This is how you would think of orcs in Lord of the Ring, where it's like, well, it's the little fucks that are running around, and it's the big motherfuckers with the hands on their face.
The
like,
Urukai, yes.
Yeah, exactly. But like the Urukai, the Uruk, and the goblins all kind of fall under the same umbrella. And in this case, we have things like we have things like more traditional goblins and things that are more troll-like, which all fall under the umbrella of goblin.
Goblins.
So
they're just called. It's all of that family of creature is referred to as goblins. It's kind of an umbrella.
So they're all in some capacity, sentient as animals are, but their sapience is a lot more.
They have two. Okay,
fungible.
Hold on. They have social hierarchies.
I'm not here to argue what makes sapience sapience.
Wolves have social hierarchies too. Would you consider them sentient, Rec?
They have cultures. They have histories passed on in some regards. Be that either documented externally or orally shared.
Hey, Chaos, you're not allowed to say that.
Goblinoids.
Fun fact: Goblin is a slur.
Goblin is a slur.
Yes.
In our canon, it makes fun of the way they speak.
It sounds like gobble gobble.
It sounds like gobble gobble to the Arcanians. I mean, so that's why they call them. Can it be
considered a slur if they don't really understand what the fuck a slur is?
No, they can't because they're animals. They're stupid.
God damn it.
Stupid animals.
They're fucking people. See, Artifice actually sees them as like a sapient race and utilizes them in their like tinker workshops and stuff like that, because goblins actually work really well in groups. They have a
not just really well, almost exclusively in groups.
Yeah. So they were devoured constantly by megafauna as they evolved, and so the way that they perpetuated their species was through almost instantaneous learning. So you're like born with the knowledge of those that came before you, and they group share that information as well. Oh shit. This is why this needed a moderator and not an interviewer. Keep it from flagging the PvP. Oh my god. Hold on, I've got Popeye going off in my ear.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Cool.
Goblins are stupid and they're dumb and they're bad. And Rec is going to cope his way into an answer.
No. Okay, so no. And they group think really fucking well, because they all just kind of know what the others are thinking at any given point in time. They share information like that. That's how they share. That's how they survived, was to share information that quickly.
I'll be a good boy. You smoke.
And they didn't. I'm guessing they didn't have a chance to like advance like technologically or like in their brain. Like their whole fucking function was just survival. That's the whole like
right.
The whole share think thing was just based on survival.
Their survival mechanism is to be able to telepathically share their experiences and memories when they return to their.
Had they been
Warren
grew on a different environment, they would have been able to advance.
Right, but that's just the thing. They couldn't, in the same way that ants can't, or rabbits can't, because they're
Oh
they're
yeah,
a
because they
prey
were just
species.
constantly being consumed. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they were mid tier in their pecking order at best.
The megafauna is still a factor now.
No, thanks to the as it's remembered, the heroic actions of Pyrion.
Right.
He led a march through the lands, wiping out most of the megafauna.
So without the megafauna, would that not allow the goblins to use that survival instinct for other means?
Yes, except then they were faced with the immediate encroachment of humanity as humanity expanded a large scope empire across this continent. So they were never actually given room to become what they would have become.
Oh, so okay.
Yeah.
We're assholes.
Fuck 'em.
Thank you for that follow, Fantastic Waves. I appreciate you.
You don't get to evolve because we're here now.
Right.
Yeah.
They kind of lost their any niche that they would have had to be able to expand would have been because it was easy and fertile and safe, and that's prime for where the much stronger and more cunning human species
so now
can immediately exploit
a pest.
Yep.
Depending on your point of view, yes.
They are pests. But
what do you mean depending on your point of view? From what I'm garnering,
they are objectively invasive little pests, but there are places that utilize their nature for for their own purposes.
Let me add it.
Like in Artifices, they introduce him. Huh?
I'm gonna get that big ass eyeball.
In Artifices, they treat them more as peers because they recognize that their group intelligence is still valuable as a form of intelligence, and their utility justifies the fact that they are otherwise creatures. Things without utility aren't as useful. We wouldn't have horses and cows as readily as we do if they didn't have their immediate utility. But because goblins are super useful and have their own level of intelligence that you can perceive like you can with a dolphin or an octopus, like you interact with things regularly, you start to see the latent charisma that you can only get from interacting with it
now,
over a large period of time.
Slave labor.
By Arcanists, yeah.
Yes. In Arcanists specifically, because they see them as objectively as pests, they are lobotomized to no longer be able to speak to each other in order to be able to control their behavior, and are used as expendable labor.
That's fucked up.
It is. They're a free people in Artifice, who enjoy to work in the Tinker workshops and are given free reign on their own projects because a lot of weird innovation has come out of things like that. When given a series of repetitious work, they tend to think themselves into more efficient ways or avenues to arrive at the same form at the end point. So they are used as optimization paths.
Okay, like
for the development of industry,
like the Bill Gates way of hiring lazy people to do a job.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay,
100%. Yeah.
Okay. So, when it comes between Arcanus and what was the other one?
So there's Arx Arcanus, there's Arx Angelus, Arx Artifices is the place where goblins are free.
Yes. I played your Minecraft, yes.
Great. Arx Arboris is a place where a lot of the native species of Atrum are given reign to try to flourish and grow into their own.
So it's the hippies.
But in a guided way.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's like hippies meets eugenics. It's not great. Uh, it's
But
kind of a hell.
Like you
It's kind
said,
of
like
a
there's nothing
natural
great about this
hellscape
world.
over there. It's like if the Feywild from like D&D were like real. So like everything's trying to eat everything over there.
Okay. That's
It
Arbor.
sucks. That's Arx Arborus, yeah.
And so
Z, do you have the map you can pull up real quick?
Yeah. Give me a second.
I fucking love that animation, by the way, bro.
Oh, thanks.
That's coming out real solid.
I'm loving it. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
God damn it! I could have done it louder.
Yeah, you don't have a 5-second delay now. You have to fight fair. It's probably not going to fit there. We'll do a new image.
But those four like city states are the pillars of the Arc's Imperium, and the Empire in ages that come afterwards. Other places try to get set up, but crazy random happenstances occur. A series of unfortunate events.
You're very unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'm assuming human interference.
No. Goblin named Yarok nukes a place.
Excuse me?
Yeah, it happens. That's canon. That is a canon event.
Actual canon.
The fuck up. No, I'm against this. For obvious reasons.
Yeah, you would be.
That's a nice map. I noticed there's no roads going into Arx Arborus.
Nah.
No, actually, there's a spine of the world right there that separates Arborus and the rest of the continent proper. There is a like a small city-state thing. It's called the Friary that exists in the one pass between the Arcanian and Angelian lands and Arborus.
Goblinheimer.
Goblinheimer. So in actuality, hold on.
Here.
I gotta do my boy Yarok right.
No, you don't.
He doesn't. No, I'm doing it. He's not the one who nukes this place. All right.
Lady Charm, thank you so much for the follow.
Amazing. He's not the one who nukes this place.
You don't have to answer that right away, though. I won't let you.
Okay.
I will allow you to stand in defense of Yarok, but I don't think we need to pull the trigger on that story.
Spoiling. Okay. Fair. Lots of intrigue. Yarok did nothing wrong.
Right.
And he was taken out for it.
No, I stand on that. I agree. Yarok did nothing wrong.
Yeah. No. And was actually a figure to be idolized, but painted poorly by history. That's what I'll leave it. I'll leave it there.
Bullshit.
It is. I'm on your side, even though I did have a huge hand in writing this bullshit. And I made.
Let me ask, where did the fucking name come from?
I did fuck him over. Oh yeah, and I insisted on the name to a point that I boldface fought Zeno on it. It came to blows.
He blew me.
Exactly.
For those that don't know, in the chat, Yarok backwards is Corey, and that's me.
Ain't no way. Say it ain't so.
It's fucking
weird. Oh, crazy how nature be like that.
Like you guys get these characters of like these crazy beings and shit, and y'all write me in there as a goddamn as Goblinheimer.
I don't know what you're talking about. Goblinheimer.
Actually, the nickname for a very long time.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Was different.
Go ahead.
Oh god.
Go ahead.
God.
So the nickname for a long time was different because the role that this character plays in the story, in the eyes of a lot of people, is as a revolutionary.
Okay.
And when we had originally devised a meaningful story for that character, it was the way that we distilled his character for easy use. So it wasn't Goblinheimer, it was Goblin Hitler. And the reason for that was because his role was as a revolutionary to try to bring I mean the main distinction here is people see him as as like a Hitler type person where he's bringing some crazy new fucking ideology, some crazy ideology to an otherwise peaceful world. But in actuality, he's a more revolutionary figure where he represents the accepting of the local fauna in their own respects, is in being able to recognize not just the utility of things that aren't human, but respecting their individuality and their intelligence.
Also, so, that nickname, that moniker, was a joke penned from the point of view of the church that hella vilifies him.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it was meant to be like a caricature. Not as literal.
Right.
Okay. So this whole world, like they came from the cradle, like the humans did.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would that cradle, like, I'm assuming, is Earth?
No,
it doesn't need to be.
So
it's just the origin of humanity that we have it for in this universe.
Gotcha, and it's very vague.
But it allows us to have inserts of Earth-like things, like Earth-like animals, such as horses and things like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it acts more as a narrative device, and that's also the reason that it is just the cradle. It is never named.
Right. A lot of how it functioned as a utopia and what that means to the people, or how it functioned as a utopia and what was carried over, is a lot more of a narrative device than it is a series of actual hard and fast rules or things. Because what we wanted from them is to have this deep sense of cultural despair and loss, and the details of how it functioned become more and more meaningless as time goes on, because what's important about the cradle is what it means to the people now and what it represented to the people who were trying to make their way in this world, not the nitty-gritty details of what made it tick.
Goblin Hitler. Thank you, Zeno, for going to bat for going against that name.
What?
Going against?
Gerard.
I appreciate you.
I got you.
That was when we began to pull away from all the self inserts for the lore, as we were actually canonizing things.
Yeah, because like the whole thing is based, it is inspired by stuff that has been done in the past, but we wanted to make it something that would stand on its own. So all of the characters and events became much more divorced as we started to refine it, because we wanted it to be more realistic. We wanted the characters to be something that could have their own stories What's up, Chaos? Hold up, what?
Hold up.
So yeah, the only thing that survived was the name Yerok. You started to pull away from self Hitlers after Goblin Hitler.
No. The argument of the name happened when we started to pull away from self inserts. So the reason that he was arguing against the name was not because he didn't like the name, but more along the lines of didn't like it as an insert thing, because it was definitely a reference to Corey.
He laughs so he doesn't put his gun in his backpack.
No go to school.
Fucking funny, guys. Great jokes. Keep fucking laughing.
Just clarify. No, so and that's those characters. Even though I fought for that name, that's because I do like the name, and the meme of it. I'm not gonna lie.
It is a good goblin name.
But those characters, like they've even their personalities have been very divorced from the self inserts that they started as. Like with Rockwus is nothing like me. There are cartoonishly caricaturized versions of things that I've used just because it's one of those write what you know deals.
Right.
But he's not me. Just as Pyrion is not Xeno. And Yerok is nothing like Corey.
Yeah, I'm not fucking Goblin Hitler.
It's just where those things were birthed.
All right, so this map.
Yep.
Where did it stem from? Like, did you guys like craft the story around the map or vice versa?
We had a general idea of where things were relative to each other. For example, this is the map that Rec bullied me into using. This is the one that I had originally created, based off of my understanding of how things existed relative to each other.
I'm still looking at the same thing. Hold up. I'm waiting for your stream to catch up. How am I so far behind? There we go. It's behind the floating eyeball, but I got you. All right, there we go. You moved it. I'm talking to you in the past, but good job.
All right.
How about now? Can you see it now? Can you see it now?
I see an Umbrella Academy symbol over there.
I appreciate you. Yeah, that would be where Arcanist was.
Okay.
No.
No?
No. He's
what
talking
the fuck
about. He's talking about Arborus. It's a tiny tree, but it looks like an umbrella.
Oh.
Unless I have no idea.
Yeah, absolutely right. The one over to the east.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Arborus.
Arborus.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, and so there were some things that. Damn, I mean, we came up with those two maps independently of each other, but with the same understanding of where things were in relation to each other, that they ended up coming out pretty similarly. But I did definitely bully him into using the one that I
had. For what reason?
He made it.
I made it, and I'm a bully. A lot of our canon is a collaborative argument.
I mean, it looks like things are like mostly in the same areas that they would have been.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is why I didn't.
The shape of the land itself is different.
It was more important to him than it was to me what the shape was.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, this one does look more organic.
Yeah.
So that ultimately ended up being a lot of my arguments for things, was that I tried to take biome, environment, and weather into account for in the structure of the land around things, and I put a lot of thought into I went way deep in the sauce that will never matter. It will never matter how deep into that sauce I went, but it mattered to me a lot at the time because I was hyper focusing on it. So I had put a lot of effort.
Is this like a world, a planet, or is it like a plane?
a world, a planet. There are other continents actually, and other stories happening over there.
I was gonna ask about other continents because you were talking about biomes and stuff. I was like, is there like a northern continent?
There are other continents that exist, but we haven't
one
fleshed
other
them out.
supercontinent.
Gotcha.
There's there
All
may
right.
be other smaller continents,
So-
but there's one other supercontinent.
Touching back on the old Minecraft server you guys used to have that shared a lot of these names.
The secret origin,
Is
the deep lore.
Is the geography to this
No.
at all like
No,
not even a
Okay.
little.
nope.
so like it's not in the same general directions or
Nope.
No, not even
Okay.
not even informed by the biomes that were present in that game.
Ain't that the fucking truth?
Yeah, that was old Minecraft.
Yeah, no, we like with the characters only drew general inspiration from. So
Gotcha.
Arcanus ended up down where it is there because I had always wanted to be in plains, so as to best show off the city itself against the horizon, because a lot of its appearance is this. This is
Right.
what Arcanus looks like in present day or at the time of the Voidfall.
I'm waiting for that.
So that and so we ended up moving it down in that southern area, specifically because
so it had room to breathe.
Yeah, so it would have room to breathe, and so that it could be a sort of contrast to what Angelus is like. I have a mock-up of what Angelus looks like.
Okay.
And it exists in the mountains as this colossal this colossal structure that kind of demonstrates humanity's desire to wall up and try to be safe. Where the fuck did I put this picture?
So in this in this universe, the humans like went off and like colonized other worlds.
No,
Just the one actually,
just Atrum here,
and just that one continent on Atrum.
And you said that there's thousands of years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's as much as they got.
That is a big motherfucking continent. That is all of Asia, Europe, fucking Africa. That's the shebang. That is a supercontinent. Those are not small distances. And in fact, the only way that they can bridge those distances is because they have a method of instantaneous translocation via the Arcs Gate system, which are derivations of the same technology that they used to slip from the cradle to Atrum initially, but it's connected gates from one kingdom or principality to another for instantaneous travel, so you can just like teleport from one to another.
Yep.
And that technology is based off of it's like mana punk-esque, but
this is the mock-up of Archangelus.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh shit! You also have the mock-up for Artifice.
Yeah.
The definitely generative mock-up of it.
So it's in the mountains.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Angela says, yeah.
Zeno, is this character of yours the eye? Is this at all a character?
Yeah. That is
the design is drawn specifically from it. Here, let me get you the real mock-up of Artifice, because I pulled up the haha placeholder one. The original one that I had cooked up for you.
Yeah.
This
Which
is what Artifice
was a cool direction. Waiting to see it. Yeah, there she is.
So what's art? What is Artifice like? What's their shtick?
Artifice and machine.
Machine.
Robots. There'd be robots.
All again, Mana Punk, built off of Ark's Tech, which ironically is still the name of that. So that's kind of a self insert because it's the name of our company.
Well, to be fair, it's
one beget the other.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah,
we named the company that because
company after
I was
Ark's
using all the
yeah. So, but that's what the technology of this Imperium is called, because it's the tech for the Ark's Imperium.
Right.
But it uses arcane energy or the ambient breath to essentially work spells or do shit like that. Like there's a lot of hand waving on what's mechanical and what's magical,
Right.
because they go hand in hand on that.
Like Asgard and Marvel.
Right.
No. A lot. Well, no, because there's well, no, same basic principle, but they do a lot of shooting magical beams.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we do more moving parts and intentional mechanisms.
So this image that I'm uploading here is not ours. I believe it's a Magic the Gathering card, but it helps represent one aspect of what Ark's Tech looks like. And I'm updating it again. So I know you guys are in the past.
Yeah.
That's one aspect of it. That's very early age trying to get shit working. And then this other image is a much more refined aspect of how it looks once it's gotten its shit together technologically.
Yeah. Perfect. Not the exact same style, but
Right.
in the right direction, right form.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if I can tie it to another IP, sort of like the Draenei. Like with their sentinels and shit.
Kind of. So like only for only in the direction of automatons.
Okay.
Because that is roughly how golems go. That is their progression.
Yeah, that's
and they stop in that direction. But other things, it's God, what's another thing? Nothing outside of Magic really does that type of style, that sleek silvered machining.
Nothing outside of what?
Magic, MTG.
Oh, no. That in fact that's very specific to Kaladesh, one of their planes.
Dune in its golden age of technology does shit like that, so it gets similar stylistically. And
like the
ironically
movie
enough,
Alita Battle Angel. Good movie, by the way.
Not seen it.
It is
I
a
don't
good
watch
movie.
many movies. Is a problem. It's a problem. I don't have enough dedicated time for a movie like that, because movies can't really be second screen content, and I'm always fucking working on something. Whoops, killed that guy.
What are you making here, Zeno?
It's my raid alert. So whenever I get a raid alert, it's gonna go, and then show the info down at the bottom.
What was the last question? Did we answer everything?
I think that's all I got. I gotta be getting to bed. I got work in the morning.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right, guys. Thanks for the chat.
Thanks for hanging out.
No, dude.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate
Pretty
you.
fucking cool.
Fuck yeah.
Hope to hear more about it.
Hell yeah. If we continue, it'll be up on YouTube, and you can brush up on any parts that you may have missed. If you're interested. Thank you again so much, dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. Later, guys.
Z,
No, dude.
Are there any loops for us to close? Anything for us to continue going on our own?
He did bring up the design of the I'm just fucking around with OBS here. He did bring up the design for the soprano that I'm using as my avatar. So
yeah,
what I'm doing is as I continue to flesh out my presence here on Twitch, the artistic direction that I'm taking inspiration from is the entity, the extra dimensional celestial tools that were devised by Pyrion to help protect humanity, which share a lot of the same visual language, and I'm using that as an excuse to be able to create more art for them. So, for example, the one that I have right now is the soprano, which is a huge goddamn image. Holy crap. And the soprano, or there's the choir, which is a sort of cast of artificial angels created to protect humanity. And what they mean in Icon's legacy is this soprano is the smallest form of that. They're the lowest rung. They're the busy. They're the worker bees that do a lot of the manual labor, as it were, when it comes to protecting people. And in this hierarchy, they become larger and more complex. The more important they are, and the higher their duties become. So eventually, you start seeing much weirder and more cosmic shapes in their design language. And so as I design my avatar here for Twitch, it'll give me an excuse to be able to play around in this design space some more. Where right now these just exist as a series of reference images that don't really have a place to exist anywhere else. I'm very happy with the
those things look so fucking cool.
The shape that they take. Yeah.
I was just really quiet because I was thinking of the way that I'm going to be. I need your VOD at the end of this, so I was thinking of how I was going to cut these images and your parts of that into the video to give a viewer a seamless representation of the conversation, because you have visual aids here that matter. So I was just thinking about that. Sorry, I went all quiet.
Yeah, I am keeper of all the pretty pictures.
Yep.
Why isn't? Oh, it's because it's a TIFF. What the hell is a TIFF? Why can't I open that with? Oh well. I have a cool image I can't show you because it's not real, I guess. That's fun.
Great.
Yeah, it OBS doesn't seem to recognize it as a usable image type. We do have this, which is a representation of the highest cast of the choir. I'm a huge fan of their design language.
Ah, yeah. What are those called canonically?
This is a conductor.
Okay.
They are the highest rank in the choir. So the way that their hierarchy goes, I have it written down here. So they the whole body of entities is called the choir, and their hierarchy starts at the bottom with the soprano, and then it goes up to the mezzo soprano, then the contralto, which is this guy, um, and then we go up to the alto, then the countertenor, tenor, baritone, bass, and then lastly we have the conductors. Now the conductors aren't typically a choral voice in the conventional sense, but I wanted to be able to round out to a nice parallel with angiology, and since they're the pinnacle of this organization or body, um, they operate as directors. So where everything else kind of executes a function, these direct the sort of domains that they have purview over, and thus
Okay.
they have that label of conductor.
And to give a little bit more context, these entities are like they were constructed
Mm-hmm.
For like so this represents the like pinnacle of technology ever reached in the Arx Imperium was the crafting of these entities,
Right.
or the construction of these entities,
Be-
specifically to combat the inevitable onslaught of the dark.
yeah, they're the culmination of a lot of different sciences. For
Yeah.
example, once Rockwes and Pyrion create the basis for usable magic uh, for humanity. Um, Later on down the line, uh, Pyrion then further refines that into a framework that humans can use more accessibly, and that power is what kind of begets the foundation to religious validation, is they start to gatekeep access to that. But as part of that framework of power that Pyrion created for humanity to use to protect itself, specifically to protect itself, um, he created these things, and these are higher dimensional artificial constructs. And when I say higher dimensional, they are literally higher dimensional. Um, there is a volcano of a name I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Where where raw breath is being exhausted from the core of the planet unimpeded. So much so that it has force, like literal force. And it was noted originally that things that were dropped into the volcano would disappear, not because they fell into it. In fact, they would be kind of pushed up like an air vent, but eventually they would just stop existing altogether. And it was later determined that they were being moved in a fourth spatial dimension. So the way that these things are constructed is they're functionally printed layer by layer and extruded through this force in order to be able to print a thing in a higher dimension that we cannot ourselves perceive or move through. So that's a particularly cool aspect about them that I really enjoy, and that a lot that also gives them the ability to be able to watch from a much more cohesive capacity, where they look down on our three dimensions in a more whole way than we can from within those three dimensions. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of that. I like tinkering around with Arcanus because there's a lot there to really explore for myself. Between the designs of the choir and the the religious history and the political history of that kingdom in particular, I have a lot of fun with.
Yeah, I can't say that I blame you.
Yep.
Okay.
So it looks like we might be a little out of gas here.
It might be. Sorry, I started to
Get
try to
distracted.
add you to my stream.
That we missed that train a long time ago.
Well, no, I've got you up there right now.
Ah, gotcha.
um, but yeah, this is where you and I can just get lost in sauce or in actually defining canon, but we haven't decided we want to do that live, like actually design and work on stuff live. Something we'll have to cook on a little bit, the two of us.
Sure.
I'm hella down for doing this again and continuing further. This has been a lot of fun.
There's a lot to go into. There's your Robot Wars, the Golden Crusade. There's the Schism, the Second Empire. The Second Empire is pretty cool.
God damn. There's also a lot of shit that's not defined in between. We just know like ages of stagnation and shit.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of it where it's not necessarily yada yada for the sake of convenience, but because we want to leave ourselves room to be able to flesh out stuff in the future.
Yeah. All right. We will try to advertise out the next time we intend on doing something like this, or we'll just spring it on you guys, just like this did, and it'll also appear on YouTube. If you stepped in at any later point in this show and are interested in seeing all of it, again, it'll be up on YouTube in its entirety. Hopefully cleanly cut with relevant contextual images provided by the floating eyeball. Thank you all for watching. Z, this has been awesome. I appreciate you.
It was fun.
Let's see. I'm gonna raid out, I think. Share the love. Gonna send out to, let's see. Oh, that's a good question. I never raid out this late.
You ain't got nobody.
Gray matter. Ha, take that. Take that.
They're all eepy. They're all sleepy.
Sending out to Gray Matter. I'll see you all at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard tomorrow, where I'll be playing through Black Ops 6 with Andy and Pixel, doing the Terminator event. That's going to be awesome. Hopefully our games don't suck. Thank you all.
Boom. Let's see. I'm gonna do my own raid out here. Did you just send yours?
I did.
All right, let me go ahead and deafen this here. All right, everyone. Thank you for sticking around, doing my own little goodbye. I really appreciate everyone who came and watched the awesome stream with all the visual aids. Let's see who we're gonna raid out to. Last time it was Minecraft, which was pretty cool. Pretty cool. Let's see if we have anyone here. Looks like they would be fun to watch. All right, all right. I think I found someone. It, they seem interesting. They have a cookie on their head, which is pretty fun. So I'm gonna be rating out to a new person. They're also a VTuber. Their name is Nimiyu. So be nice. Don't be a jerk. Let me grab their name here. I've only raided once before, so I'm not very good at it. But that is an opportunity for me to learn to do it more effectively. Okay, cool. So I can just go over here and then I search for Nimio. Click them. And let's go say hi. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Goodbye, everyone.